Mike, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I don't know if I found carnivore or carnivore found me. A little bit of backstory. Like most people that are on this journey to find some solutions here, I had done the every couple of years dieting, knowing I really want to get some weight off, and you white knuckle it through that 15 to 30 pounds, and then what? It ends up all coming back. So I have memories of all that, and so does everybody else. And then I got to a point where I said, this is insanity. Einstein's definition, keep doing it over and over again, expecting a different result. That is the definition of insanity. And I said, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to work the problem backwards in such a way, so to speak. So I told myself, as best as I can, as best as a human can, I'm going to forget I know anything about nutrition, about health, about weight loss, because nothing's working. So I said, I'm going to start like a baby. I'm going to ask the most simple questions your viewers would say, well, obviously everyone knows the answer to that, but obviously we don't, because the obesity is on the rise at epidemic levels, and that's in the modern age of medicine. It's how is that possible? Disease is running rampant. How is this possible? So nothing was adding up to me. The current medical system, the current diet guidelines and advice was failing us. So I didn't know how at that point, but I knew it was. So I said, forget it. Nobody knows jack about jack. I'm starting fresh. So I asked the question, how do we gain weight? Seems like a simple question. Well, everyone knows that. You're eating too much. You're not moving enough. Well, no, that wasn't it. So, and I Googled the crap out of everything. And I'm pretty obsessive when it's something I want to be good at, or I want to know enough about. I go deep. I go down the rabbit hole. So I started asking these questions. How do we gain weight? Not how do we lose weight? How do we put on weight? Why does the body put on weight? And I quickly, well, not quickly, but I navigated through several influencers, and I started learning about the influence of insulin on the human body and what drives insulin, and working that problem from there backwards. And I also went into a history of obesity, because I remember, we all remember seeing movies and pictures from the past. There were no obese people in old films. So I looked into the history of obesity and people being overweight. It was from the 1960s back. It was extremely rare. It existed, but it was rare. It was single digit percentages. Like in the early 1900s, the obesity rate was like 3%. You look at it now, it's 40% and climbing. In the midst of a medical revolution, in the midst of federal dietary guidelines, how it just doesn't add up. So I go, so what's changed? So with the history of what's changed, with the knowledge of how the body actually puts on weight, I learned that it was insulin driving everything. Insulin, if you solve the insulin problem, you solve a dozen other problems, because you solve insulin, you're fixing 18 other hormones. So I learned originally through the work of Jason Fung out of Canada. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's a kidney doctor out of Canada, and he was the first that I got exposure to with the concept of insulin, intermittent fasting, and pretty much learning that insulin is driven primarily by carbohydrate. So protein will drive it a little bit, but it's hard to do that since we're so under we don't consume enough protein. It's really hard to do that, and fat is almost flatline. Fat doesn't raise insulin much at all. But with the standard American diet, and I know that translates to the British Isles, Australia, most developed countries, 70% of our diet is ultra processed food. So we are just flooded with excess carbohydrate, which drives glucose, because once you have that high glucose, your insulin is doing its job. It's coming in and it's packing it away because it's so damaging to the proteins in our body. And I learned, well, okay, I want to eat for my insulin. you get that concept down, you eat for your insulin. Now you're going to start shedding the weight, and the health benefits that follow that are going to be amazing. And yeah, and it's like we didn't have access to this amount of addictive food. Carbohydrates are the only macronutrient that are addictive, and we didn't have access to it. And so I started out with what I learned from Jason Fung. I tried to cheat the system. So I did a lot of intermittent fasting. So I said, okay, I'm going to ease into this. So I pushed off eating until 2 o'clock every day. I go, okay, I'm gonna accomplish that hurdle. But then I told myself, as my reward to help get me past those cravings and that hunger hurdle, I'm going to eat whatever the hell I want, even if it means, I told myself, I will give myself permission to eat everything I would have eaten anyways at 2 o'clock, including what I would have eaten at 2 o'clock. And it didn't turn out that way. So I would have the hamburger. I wouldn't be able to get through the fries. I would eat about the same at that meal that I would have had if I had already had the first meal. So I actually started to lose weight on that process. But then as I dove deeper and deeper, I realized that the benefit of the actual carb part of the equation. So getting your insulin down has a couple of main components. It's the frequency of eating, and it's what you're eating. So the fasting got me that first part of the equation. Doubling down on the what you're eating got me the second part. And then the weight loss happened much more. So I was pushing 275. That's the last I weighed myself. And at 5'8", 275, I was clinically obese. I don't know where the morbid obese equation comes in. I loaded up some photos there that whenever you think you might want to flash them up, yeah, I mean, I hadn't looked at a photo of myself in some time. And to see that, I'm thinking, is that really me? Who is that guy? So that, seeing photos like that, having a few health issues, dealing with caring for my aging mother-in-law with her diabetic issues, I didn't want to be that kind of burden. So that was another reason why I went on that journey of discovery of learning how we gain weight. And it came back to the lowest carb equation in the diet. And my wife and I, she's a trooper. She's not fully on board with the full carnivore thing, but she's come 80%. But that last 20% is so important because if you have a damaged metabolism, having the cheat meals, having the excess of, say, 20 carbs a day, it really hurts your progress in fixing your metabolism first. So I graduated to just a lot of protein, with the fat, steaks, chicken, pork, occasional seafood, but I still had the non-starchy vegetables. So motored along like that for a year. And one day I'm having dinner with my wife and I looked over at my wife and I looked at my plate. I go, honey, do you realize I haven't had a vegetable in over a month? So my transition away from even vegetables was just subconscious. It wasn't even a conscious plan to take those out of my diet. And so I started the intermittent fasting, quickly went to low carb, keto. And here I am 3.5 years later. I've been carnivore now for probably a year and a half. Full disclosure, I'll have a vegetable as a garnish. Like if I'm making a burger patty, a couple of burger patties with cheese on it, I might top it off with a grilled onion. But that's about the extent of vegetables in my life anymore. I don't believe they're necessary for proper nutrition and health. My diet is comprised primarily of ribeyes. I'll have some baked chicken thighs and legs, maybe once every couple of weeks, but it's primarily beef and eggs. And I've been thriving. So I'm about 65 pounds off the scale, but I've put on quite a bit of muscle, and I didn't start exercising till at least 6 months in. I didn't have the energy for it, but I think this diet put me in good enough health that I actually looked forward to the exercise. Um, so it was quite a transition. Yeah, and that's how carnivore found me. It was
No-
because of what I learned about human physiology that
mm.
doctors don't even know, or they don't care to teach you, or they don't think they have the time to teach you, or they don't think you have the self control to fight against the addictive nature of the carbohydrate diet they know you're on. So, long story short, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, it's always good when you kind of just stumble into these things, right? It's like
Yeah.
quite satisfying when you look back and you realize, like, I did all this myself, but it was all also a little bit kind of, without too much of a plan. I just kind of eventually stumbled into carnivore.
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard to have a plan when you don't have people that you respect, that you think should know the plan, that are sharing it with you. People have this reverence for doctors as being all knowing. Well, that's not what a doctor's job is. Doctors don't go into things as research scientists. They're told what to know. They're not given experiments to prove how a drug does this and why a person is getting this sick. Doctors aren't taught root cause medicine. So to get advice on why you're sick from a doctor who's not taught root cause medicine, it's not in their wheelhouse. I mean, the sad thing is they won't tell you that's not in their wheelhouse. So you've got to get this information on your own. You have to be proactive for your own health. There's many reasons why a doctor won't share certain information with you, and most of it is time. And their understanding or expectation of patient compliance, even if they did know the information and shared it with you, the compliance rate would be very low because of the addictive nature of the certain foods that have them there.
Yeah. So for you, like, you've transitioned down, you've had the intermittent fasting, the low carb, keto, and eventually to carnivore. Um, is there anything that happened once you started moving into carnivore that you realized, well, oh wow, that was a big change,
Yeah.
whether it be
Yeah.
weight or sleep or energy or something?
Really. So it's funny you mentioned sleep. I had a hard time getting past 6 hours of sleep. Sleep went to 7 to 8 hours, which was huge. Um, Energy levels definitely went up. The weight loss tweaked down about another 10 pounds, and brain fog. Brain fog, it started to lift once a lot of the junk was out of my diet, but the mental clarity when I really stripped out a lot of the vegetables, things that were hanging around that I didn't need. My brain started firing and functioning like it did 15 years prior. So that was probably the biggest thing. And the energy level and desire to stay consistent and go to the gym 3 times a week and walk. It was huge. But I want to make it perfectly clear: the diet changed 80+% of it. So if people are thinking, "Hey, this is going to be hard. I'm going to have to start a diet an exercise program right away," absolutely not. You focus on the diet; it will bring the energy for the exercise to you. Very important.
Yeah, that's one of the things I found most surprising about carnivore was that my body actually now wanted to move. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's
wasn't
so
in a
cool.
position where I was sitting there going, "Oh, I should go and do something. I should go for a walk or whatever." It was like my body was actually saying, "Okay, let's go out. Let's go and do something."
Yeah, our bodies are designed to move. We aren't designed to be sedentary. Sedentary. We aren't designed to be sedentary. We are designed to move, and we aren't designed to be eating all the time either. We're designed to be eating a good, big, healthy meal when we find it, and then spending the next day or two finding the next big, healthy meal. We aren't designed to be grazing all day long. And that's where a lot of this metabolic dysfunction kicks in. People are grazing all day long. Their insulin levels are staying constant. Their body is in a constant storage mode. And exercise is that third lever in bringing the insulin down. We have the fasting, we have the what you eat, and now it's the exercise that helps deplete excess blood sugar. So that third wheel, that third lever to pull is really important. So movement, what you're eating, and when you're eating. I mean, you cannot be fat, you cannot be overweight if you exercise those three parts of human physiology that we were designed to live by. It just can't happen. In fact, in the absence of insulin, it doesn't matter how many calories or what those calories are made of. You cannot gain weight. Insulin is required to gain fat. Type 1 diabetics are the perfect example. Until they're diagnosed and get on an insulin regimen, they are extremely skinny. They cannot gain fat. They cannot gain fat. They're wasting away. Once insulin comes in, now they can start storing fat. In fact, the injection sites that they use, if they don't move them around, will have these excess little fat balls. Wherever they inject repeatedly, that insulin in that site will cause a growth of fat right there concentrated at that level, among the other fat spread throughout the body. But it's quite interesting. Again, back to the whole insulin thing. Insulin is king. It's not a bad hormone. In fact, you would die without it, but it is called into action on such an extreme amount beyond any physiological level we were ever designed to experience. Carbohydrates just weren't available in nature to the extent we have them. And carbohydrates have replaced protein. You know, foods aren't shelf-stable with protein in it, so manufacturers strip the protein out. And without the protein, your body is looking for more and more food on top of the addictive nature of the carbs. I'm sure you've heard of the protein leverage hypothesis. Ted Naiman talks about it a lot. I'm not well, so protein is the most important macronutrient in the human body. There's so many thousands of hormones and processes and enzymes that are made up of different strings of protein. Without protein, you die, period. So that, you know, one of the two nutrient sensors that we have in the digestive tract is for protein and fat. We have no nutrient sensor in the digestive tract for carbohydrates. So your digestive system is constantly communicating with your brain about the level of protein, especially coming in. Fatty acids, sure, but certainly about protein. And the protein leverage hypothesis says that until an organism hits the level of protein necessary for the protein required processes for the day, it will keep a level of hunger going until you hit it. So that's one other thing. So you're eating for your insulin, but you got to eat for your protein too. So you got to leverage your protein. So once you get that protein out of the way, overall hunger starts to drop as well. So it's been a fascinating journey. I've learned so much. So I've got a board over my shoulder here that I put up. I put information up about a year and a half into it. Would you like me to kind of show it to you? I mean, I have to move the camera to do it, but okay. So I'm hoping you can see it. I'm going to turn some lights on. So I put this up over a year and a half ago of some of the different concepts that I've learned, and it's been it kind of summed up that whole first year and a half, plus a lot of the influencers and doctors. Now, I appreciate the non-medical influencers up here. I mean, I'm one of them. You're one of them. I totally appreciate it. But I wanted to list doctors and scientists, actual guys out in the field with lab coats on, just from a credibility standpoint. So that was just to kind of put a cap on where my brain is. I don't go in with one foot. I'm going all in and swimming right up to my neck. But so it's been real interesting. And the fact that I've this is the first time in my life I've ever not only lost weight, I've lost appreciable weight, at least double or triple what I've ever lost before. And I'm 3.5 years in. There's no going back. I mean, this is it. And I enjoy the crap out of the food I eat. There's no suffering. There's no hunger. Oh my God, Dave, there's no hunger. Diets, people think, are always set themselves up for, I don't know if I can handle the hunger this time again. Diets are a failure, because if you go in thinking I'm just going to lose weight, it's a failure. Don't even start. Learn about insulin, learn about protein, learn about the addictive food. And, it's been real interesting in my own social circle. And as I mentioned earlier to you, I didn't go into this expecting to do any kind of YouTube channel. I've recently started one, but again, more than 3 years in. And the reason why it's because I thought there was enough people out there sending this message. And I thought it was going to catch like wildfire. But even in my own social circle, people seeing what I've done and the response has been, oh my God, where did the other half of you go? But yet, nobody has really come knocking on my door in private to say, hey, how did you do this? I mean, they know what I'm doing, but it's almost like they look at you with, that can't be right. That can't be good. Yet on the other end of that expression is something similar to the picture of me you just showed and the 5 medications they're on. So I just want people to take control of their own health, ask the questions that should be asked is, okay, if what he's doing is so bad, why does he look so healthy? Why does he look better than I've ever seen him before? Why is his energy so good? They see my posts with my wife on Facebook, walking 15 to 20 miles at Disneyland regularly. They see us traveling and enjoying hikes and stuff, things I never could have done at that 275 plus pounds. So it's like, so make it add up to you. If your doctor is saying too much meat is bad, ask them why. Ask them to show you the study. They'll probably, oh no, I don't have time to look that up, whatever. But I mean, be curious. Ask the question, why wasn't there an obesity problem back prior to 1960, 1950 for sure? Why was cancer rare? Why was the first heart attack diagnosed in 1912 and not prevalently diagnosed for another 30 years? Why, when statin drugs came into play, heart disease rates have still skyrocketed without that drug making any dent in that meteoric rise? Diabetes rates, cancer rates. Why have all these things really kicked into gear from like the 1960s and up on a meteoric rise? And the prevalence of that was baseline, less than 10% in any of those categories pre-1960. I like things to make sense. If I'm going to follow a protocol, make it make sense. Anyways, I know I can get rambling on, but I'm very passionate about it.
And so, just on the points that make sense, I think your explanation before just regarding insulin, the fact that people kind of go, well, carnivore doesn't look right, when they first see it. But if you just explain the insulin part of it to them, it should I think it's a pretty convincing argument.
I think so too. And that's why I want to try to put my voice out there as well. But I understand the battle. I understand the indoctrination that all of us has faced. If I had somebody like me trying to convince me 3.5 years ago of this same kind of stuff, I would have looked at them and given them about 15 seconds of my time and walked away and dismissed them flat out. So I understand the struggle is real. I'm not diminishing that. We have been told by people that we trust our lives with that certain things are the way to go. The food pyramid, the 5 servings of grains and fruits and vegetables, limit meat because it's a cancer causing, powerhouse. We have, and news channels, the number one item of commercials on news outlets are pharmaceutical drugs. Okay. And, it's like, you need this for this symptom, this for this symptom. There is no money in cures. I hate to sound a little conspiratorial because I'm not like that at all. I believe, even if there is something conspiratorial go on, I know one person isn't going to solve it. So I'm going to learn to navigate the system, even with some of that nonsense going on. But there is no money in curing people, and pharmaceutical companies are businesses. They're not in the business of cures. Cures make no money. Long-term repeat customers make money. And that is the reality. Food companies, they know exactly what their foods are doing to people, but they're making a lot of money. Do I fault them? I don't know if I can, because they're in the business of making money. I'm not giving them a free pass, certainly. But where I do have trouble with that whole system is how it kind of evolved and warped into the federal government, kind of getting behind some of these companies that have large enough lobbies and influence to direct our health guidelines. So, So just what I've learned, there's also been a part of me that is kind of gotten a little angry at times. Being thought of as my health and my body for several decades of my adult life being used as a little profit pawn in these food companies and in the medical industry, and me still living a life of obesity, which diminishes your output, diminishes your enjoyment of life. Lack of motivation, dealing with growing heart disease. I'm sure I haven't had any issues, but health is declining. And yet it was sanctioned by government guidelines, and I didn't have the information to make my own decision not to go that route. So I'm grateful to no end that at 56, I was 56 years old when I got this, when I finally took that journey and started to investigate on my own and got the answers that have helped me regain my health. I am grateful that going forward, it's not likely that my beautiful, caring wife is going to have to care for me for the last 16 years of my life. That's the average, that people are in decline the last 16 years of their life. I don't want her to have to caretake me, have to shower me, have to do bathroom services on me. I don't want that. I don't want that for my family. So it went from, my God, how could someone do that to me? But it's happening all over the world. It's happening constantly. And it's going to take a lot of years to change that.
Oh, yeah, it's going to take. So I'm always in two minds about this, right? So I kind of see carnivore as a little bit like in the time of it becoming acceptable. I always see it in terms of like something like low carb, like Atkins, when
Mm-hmm.
Atkins published his book the first time, he was a
I
freak.
read Atkins.
He was a weirdo, everyone was against him, blah, blah, blah,
Of
blah, blah,
course.
right?
Of
But
course.
now if you say to someone, I'm doing Atkins, I'm doing low carb, they don't blink an eye. But
Yeah.
um I feel like carnivore is kind of like that, but it's on a little bit more of a fast track because now we have the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think the uptake will be faster than, say, low carb or Atkins was. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's still some hurdles.
Honestly, Dave, I think that if we just got rid of the ultra processed food and seed oils, but that kind of expands the conversation. But if we just went to animal products and non-starchy vegetables with the occasional starchy vegetable and very minimal fruit, because fruits that we have today are candy bars, but I digress. So even if we had vegetables and meat products, the health and average weight distribution of our populations would be so largely corrected the health implication of just making those changes would be phenomenal. So if somebody's watching this thinking they have to make the decision to be all or nothing carnivore, I'm not saying that. I don't think you're saying that. I think it's the absolute healthiest way to go, but I don't think you need to start that way. Step into it with getting rid of the processed foods. Limit your fruit, non-starchy vegetables, and animal products. And it really comes down to what your starting point is. Are you really obese? Are you already on a diabetic medication? Have you had a heart attack? How much metabolic damage do you have? Are you just starting to gain weight? Are you 30 or 40 years old? So depending on where you are on that spectrum, or if you're in shape, and you can handle a few more carbs. So your body's going to tolerate a different level of carbs based on the metabolic damage you have. So what you may be able to tolerate today would be different than if you went all in, really strict, spent 6 months to a year getting yourself really tuned up, then reintroducing some of those same foods. You might be able to tolerate it better once your mitochondria are healthier, once your systems are functioning better, once your hormones are functioning better, once you are more insulin sensitive. So, in one diet I used to do, and this is how my mind works. I remember a couple decades ago, I'm saying, okay, I don't want to look like the way I did at the time. I was probably 30, 40, whatever pounds overweight. I go, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at one of my really lean, super fit friends, and I'm going to eat what they eat. Well, that's failure. Even if I ate calorie for calorie exactly when they did it and when they didn't, their metabolism isn't as broken as mine. They're exercising more than me. So they have a completely different physiology going on. So it kind of destroys the calories in, calories out model. So, my God, we could spend a whole hour on that. So forget that. So so the sicker you are on that spectrum, I think the more strict you have to be, at least temporarily. And I think that you go long enough on it, like happened to me, you'll lose interest in carbs. You'll lose the cravings. You'll lose the addiction. One of the most surprising things my friends and family share with me is they cannot believe the level of junk and carbs they would see me eat at barbecues and parties to now having zero interest in it. They're shocked. I mean, shocked.
And that's the thing. It goes from, I need this stuff, this is my life, I can't imagine life without it, to feeling like I've just got no emotional connection. It's
Yeah.
like, that breakup in high school when you pine after that girl that dumped you for 6 months or something, and then you finally realize, what did I even see in her?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting. Carbohydrates are, again, I mentioned, the only macronutrient among the carbs, protein, and fat. It is the only macronutrient that stimulates the similar pleasure centers of our brains as drugs, alcohol, and any addiction. Carbohydrates is the only one that does that. Fats and proteins do not. So you become much more sensitized. Things that you'll sample after not eating carbs for a long time will be so sweet you won't like it. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So day to day, like, your eating is 2 meals a day?
Yeah, so I do primarily 2 meals. There are 3 meal days, and I'll tell you how that works. I'm a construction contractor out here in Southern California, so some days my duties include me leaving, going out and supervising jobs and that. So I don't eat breakfast on those days. In fact, I don't eat breakfast on most days. Most days are 2 meals a day, and my first meal is anywhere from 3 o'clock to 4:30 or so. So on my 2 meal a days, they're mid-afternoon to late afternoon, with a kind of like a follow-up carnivore charcuterie with my wife later on, probably 2-3 hours later, just to make sure I'm getting enough protein in. And honestly, I'm still hungry after a long day without that. Um, so on days where I wake up where there is hunger there, my body communicates really well. It's amazing how your systems function super well. If I'm really behind on energy or protein, I'll wake up with some hunger. So if I don't have time, I'll throw 4 or 5 eggs on, flip them over easy. Well, I'll probably cook them over medium just so the yolks aren't running everywhere. I don't use toast or anything like that, and I'll eat those down with a coffee with some heavy cream in them. So that would be the third meal. And so yeah, it's probably 2 days a week where I'm 3 meals. Other 4 days a week I'm 2 meals. And very important, there is no calorie counting here. So I'll put 4 or 5 eggs down. If I'm not feeling going through all of them and my coffee, there may be an egg left. It's rare, so I can easily go through eggs. Eggs by themselves aren't really high calorie, but they got great protein in them and great fat. And when I have my steak, I'll make a nice 1.5 pound ribeye. Usually my wife and I will both work on that. She's a much smaller eater than I am, but I do not count calories. I will eat until I'm comfortably stuffed. I don't add much fat on top of it, but I eat all the fat that comes with that steak. And I eat until I'm full, and that regulates the next meal. So yeah, and it's much harder if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, because one thing about carbohydrates I don't think people realize is, since blood sugar is so damaging to every cell. I mean, at any one time, the average human has about 4 grams of glucose circulating their system. Cells like blood cells need glucose, but most cells can function off fatty acids or ketones. Blood cells are the only ones that come to mind now. I think there's one other minor amount. And any glucose we need, we don't have to consume it. Our liver will make it out of fatty acids. So all our fatty acids are stored as triglycerides. So tri for the three fatty acids along a glycerol background, triglycerides. So that glycerol, glucose, glycogen, that is the glucose. So that'll be cleaved off, and that goes to the liver, gets converted to glucose. We have all the glucose we need. In fact, without consuming any carbs, our bodies will make about 300 grams of glucose every day on demand. So you don't need it. So when people, oh God, we got to have it. We got to have it, but we make it. We're very good at that. So when glucose goes above that 4 grams, insulin kicks into high gear to pack it away, because it's going to start damaging everything. You've heard the word glycation. I'm sure most of your viewers have too. That's like the inside of your body rusting out. Well, that's all caused by glucose. So when you have insulin getting released, packing all that glucose away, it's also packing away the fatty acids that otherwise would have been just happy enough circulating in your body for much longer time, being on-demand energy for any cell you need. So the brain is seeing all this energy getting sucked out of the blood because you ate one really big apple, or you thought that bowl of oatmeal was going to do you any good, but insulin is robbing your meal. So if you think about that, insulin is robbing your meal. The brain can't see all the fat you got hanging on your body, all the energy, because it can't get to it. Insulin's the gatekeeper. So when it's up there, you're not getting it. So all the brain sees is you got no energy, sends a signal to ghrelin, you're hungry again. And that's the most puzzling thing to people eating this kind of diet, because I remember being puzzled as hell. You know, the old Chinese food dilemma. You go eat Chinese food, you're hungry 2 hours later. Well, you've eaten 1,200, 1,500 calories. How can I possibly be hungry? Insulin stole it. So now you're hungry constantly, and you can't access that fat. So it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So if someone was asking you, how do I start with carnivore, would you recommend they transition in, just cut out the ultra processed foods first and go down?
That would be the easiest. I would tell them to read labels, if it has a label, read it. Better off not to read labels. But some of the people I've been talking to that do care and have the courage enough to want to talk to me about it are concerned about the cost. The cost, if you really map it out, depending on how you do it, can be no more than the repetitive junk food you're eating all day. So I would say double down on eggs, ground beef, chicken, pork, really cheap. Okay. If you've got a bigger budget, nothing can beat a ribeye. The New York cut is fine. So I would start with 3 meals. I would, because your body is, so when anybody diets, I think they fight 2 main things. They fight hunger and they fight cravings. So what happens to those when the average person diets? Hunger goes up because they're calorie restricting. And the brain is saying, wait a minute. So they probably just ate a smaller amount of carbohydrates, which insulin just sucked out of your blood. So hunger is shooting up. And when hunger goes up, cravings follow. So you're craving more of the stuff you just restricted that your brain is telling you, go find something else to eat. So you need to eat until you are comfortably stuffed. So if I was just given a baseline, if a person didn't want to think about it, I would tell them to put, if it's ladies that can't eat as much, their meal might be a little smaller, but I would start even the ladies on a 4 scrambled egg with cheese omelet in the morning. Eat as much of it as you can. I would have your coffee with some heavy cream. You want to get your fat. You want to get your protein. You got to understand one thing. There are 2 energy macros. Protein is not an energy macro, even though it's assigned 4 calories per gram. It is a poor energy substrate. Your body spends a lot to break down the proteins into the individual amino acids, and it's going to use those for building materials. What's left over, you might get a little left for calories. But anyways, the 2 main energy macros are carbohydrates and fat. So if you're going to severely restrict the carbohydrates, you have to make sure you're getting enough fat. You will be hungry. So most people get in trouble when they think of that they're still in diet mode. So they go for low fat, carnivore kind of foods. Do not do that. You're not getting your energy. You're going to be hungry. You're going to say, oh my God, this doesn't work for me. So do not get egg whites. You need an egg with the yolk, and you probably need 4 or 5 of them. Have that for breakfast. For lunch, I would say have a couple of burger patties on the go with your favorite cheese on top. Mustard is no carbohydrates. They make ketchups out there that are no sugar added, that are a fraction of the carbohydrates of regular ketchup. Enjoy that. Go through them. You're going to be full. And for dinner, fielder's choice. Have a steak or have more ground beef or have some chicken thighs. Make 6, 7, 8. I don't know, whoever you're feeding for, make a bunch. They hold to the next day. And now you've meal prepped for the next day and had as much food as you wanted that day. So you've gone a whole day. You've got nice high fat, lots of protein. You're not hungry. So the hunger's come down. Now you're getting into day 2 and you've made it. Repeat, rinse and repeat. One of the things I was shocked to see so much people have a disconnect with is, well, that's boring because there's no variety. I go, so what other animal on the planet has a variety of food? A lion doesn't go kill a zebra and before he dives in, he goes, I think I need a squirrel with this, or, part of a berry bush, or cows grazing. This kind of grass is boring. Animals don't have variety. You don't that variety has been another sales pitch, a marketing scheme pushed onto us. I eat one thing per meal, pretty much predominantly. It's a ribeye. It's 5 chicken thighs. It's a bunch of eggs, maybe with a cheese garnish and some bacon. So there's 2 or 3. So you do not need variety. If you want to have some non-starchy vegetables, go for it. So that's what I would advise to people, and don't fall into the trap at thinking it's calorie counting. If you're hungry, you didn't eat enough. But don't snack. There's no snacks here. A snack is a full meal. you're going to do 3 meals. So if you're hungry between the next meal, double down on that next meal. I mean, go to town, eat.
That's really good advice. So, Mike, how can people find you on YouTube?
YouTube, I have a channel. It's called Carnivore Rebel. I'm just getting up to speed of it. I have several videos. I don't know if you clicked over on that to kind of get a sense of who I am, but I am posting more and more regularly. I've got several videos ready to drop. I've learned that it's not important to be so perfect at the editing, though I enjoy learning that process. So yeah, they can find me on Carnivore Rebel. Same on Instagram, Carnivore Rebel. And I'll be building out a website, carnivorerebel.com.
Yeah, no worries. I'll link to those in the show notes.
I
Mike,
appreciate that. I really do.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and experience. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate being invited on here. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope it helps. We need all the help we can get.